Welcome to Game Storm, a podcast where I sit down with a new game designer, artist, or creative every episode as we design a new game from scratch. My goal is to bring the creative process of design to the forefront. Come join us if you're into wacky, small indie games, hearing designers talk about their process, or if you want to follow along with the episode and design your own game to one of our prompts. This week, we have Courtney on with us for another episode of fun, on-the-spot game creation. Courtney, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners.
Sure. So I'm Courtney. I publish games under the name Courtana. I am a Chicago-based game designer, queer activist, and just general all-around community member.
That's awesome. And we met through Sean Four's Playtest Chicago group, which is, I know I've sung its praises on here before, but fantastic group with a bunch of great people in it. So excited to jump right into it. So I will not belabor that any longer, and I'll pitch our prompt. So our prompt for this week is a game with asynchronous play. So I wrote in the margins of this prompt coordinated solo, but that is maybe too prescriptive. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Play by post is also coordinated solo. Not coordinated solo, but asynchronous, I guess. So there's a bunch of interesting gaming traditions that I think follow similar stuff to this, but you could also do asynchronous play within the context of a group session as well. So a bunch of interesting stuff with this, but that's what we'll be jumping off from. And just for context, the whole game doesn't need to revolve around just that prompt. It can. That's kind of fun sometimes, but it can also be like a phase is coordinated solo, or asynchronous play, or it can be a portion of the game. It doesn't have to be the whole focus. So, any immediate thoughts that jump to your brain?
I know that the two games that I know that I've tried running asynchronous are Tether and Dead Letter Society. So I know that definitely letter writing games are really easy to make into, asynchronous games. But also there's, Terminus, I think, is a good one that you could do asynchronously. That's more that you could do in a more geocache way. I have not had anyone take me up on the offer to play that with them, but I think
Terminus? I don't think I've ever heard of that one.
So it's essentially where you go in and you explore a physical location. It's a really sweet emotional game. You can play it solo or you can play it 2-player.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of a game that is geocaching, basically. That's very fascinating.
Well, you don't need to do it. The game isn't written like a geocache, but I've been trying. I altered the rules a little bit, and nobody wants to geocache with me. But it's also winter in Chicago, so.
Yeah. I geocaching is such a fascinating phenomenon to me. I've never really engaged with it, but I've known a couple of people throughout my life who have been like, "Oh, I'm going and hunting geocaches right now," and I'm like, "What's that?" And then it kind of introduces itself to me. But that's so fascinating. I'd not even considered that. Letter writing games is the big thing that jumps out to me. I've had a game on my brain for a long time that is asynchronous play. Did you ever play the game Firewatch, the video game?
Yes.
So I have had an idea bumping around in my head for, and I've written some stuff for it, but an idea for a game that is similar to Firewatch in that the core conceit of two people who are stuck somewhere where they are somewhat isolated, and the only way you can interact with someone who is not yourself is through a walkie-talkie, and having solo play where you periodically have conversations that are couched in the fiction of the world. And I think that's kind of a fun idea, but that's just been kicking around in my head forever. So
yeah, I think that would be a really cool prompt. Now, would we both be kind of in the in the lake house where we both are at the same location in at different times? Or are we in two separate locations trying to communicate with each other?
I really love the two separate locations trying to communicate with each other, honestly. Especially there's something fantastic about the idea of you get home, there's something great about someone hitting the walkie-talkie button and being like, "Hey, I need to talk," and not knowing if they're going to get a response. like, I don't know, there's something fantastic about that, especially if the story is if the story and the journaling and the solo play is dramatic and interesting and has a lot of depth to it. Um, it's kind of fascinating. I don't know.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good one. So one thing that I've been kind of a game that I've been kind of working on with someone, but we're not like super actively there. Like it's not going to get released for a while. Is about kind of starting up an underground network of
Mm,
resistance and having to kind of communicate and not knowing if someone's caught or not.
that's also really fascinating.
Yeah. So I wonder if we could do something like that where it's you're communicating with each other, but you're also trying to, yes, you're communicating asynchronously, but you want to communicate in a way that's not going to tip people off to your exact location or intention. I mean, we could shift away from that, but I think that that adds a little bit of tension is not knowing if you not getting a response is a good or a bad thing.
That's super cool too, because then if one person through their solo play has a moment where they do get caught or whatever, then that could completely change the other person's solo play. They never get a response back maybe or whatever, and that changes the entire context of what they're doing. That's very interesting. Huh. Do you think that would be something where is this the kind of thing where you're envisioning like letters, or is it multimedia?
Ooh, I think that would be really cool, a multimedia one. Do you want like I guess do you want it to take place in the modern day or do you want it to take place in the history? Because I'm thinking like cyberpunk leaving like little not even flash drives but like floppy disks for each other in like the 80s.
Yeah, there's something pretty fantastic about having to like, well, and you could even have it take place in the modern day and still bring in some of those elements through being like, well, you can't really leave a digital footprint. Like you're gonna need to like, leave a floppy disk for them because, or a USB stick or whatever, because if you send them an email, then that's far too easy for someone to like go back and find. Um, and then if you have to leave someone a USB stick and it just gets lost, that could also be why you didn't get a response, and that's very true to form of that kind of like both media and real life thing. That's very interesting. So almost like a level of physicality to it.
And there aren't a lot of games that use tactile experiences, but I think that this would be a really cool one to integrate that, like ephemera and such.
And anyone who has listened to this show for more than one episode will know that I'm obsessed with artifacts of play, because I think like every third game that I make on here ends up with an artifact of play. And it's not always me, to be fair. Sometimes it's the guest who's like, let's do an artifact of play, and I will never say no to that. But anything with like that physicality, that tactileness, it always really like that's where that's gonna lead me in that direction, because I love that shit. So um, awesome. Okay, so some sort of element of physicality, some sort of is this a sort of game where it's mostly something like solo journaling play, and then periodically you have to do some sort of engagement with whoever? So really, it's like a duet journaling game.
Yeah. But like a multimedia one, because we're not just writing letters. It could be a short form video. It could be like a file with like solitaire to like send a message. I think that that would
I
be
love
really
that.
cool. Yeah.
I this is kind of a tangential
Yeah,
story, but
please.
when I was an intern at in college, we had to do like blogs and vlogs every week to give updates on how our projects were going. And I was a game design major with a minor in computer science, and I was working on a team with a couple of other game design majors and some like engineers and stuff, and we got so into making the craziest vlogs. So there were like other teams of like engineers who were working at this company, and then our vlogs were like edited, that we'd done like nice audio, we'd done like the whole 9 yards. We'd like recorded B-roll of us working on things. And we had like an interaction one day where one of the engineering teams went up to one of their mentors and was like, why are their vlogs just always better than ours? And this makes me think of the times that we spent after work when we didn't have to be doing this, working on those vlogs because we just wanted to make them so like crazy and intense and fun. And I just imagine how fun it would be to like put yourself in that headspace and engage in that to like the nth degree or whatever.
Yeah. No, so when I was working on my master's, we were in like small group projects. It was all like adult, like, students.
Yeah.
And we had a project and I was like, what if we made a game to motivate people to go out and like make healthy eating choices? And everyone was like, this is weird. And I'm like, let me show you. And like, I made a basic, I am not good at coding, but I found a
Yeah.
website that let me do a basic like flowchart type game.
Totally.
Cool. Our group got an A, but like in grad school, that's not hard when everyone's just like, I'm buckling down and doing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Well, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
and imagine if someone made a game and sent a game and you had to beat the game to get to the actual message or whatever.
That's amazing. That would, okay. If anyone does that, and you link it, please share it. Because that would be amazing.
So really a lot of it is about like whatever your solo game portion of it is, which is probably prompts that drive the way that you engage with the other person, and then the actual doing of the creation of that thing. Uh, Now I'm just stuck on the idea of making a simple game.
Like Flappy Bird, and at the end, yeah.
You have to get a certain amount of passes through the pipes to unlock the message. If you die, this message will explode. It's making me think of a bit of a spy game. Interesting. Okay, so cool. That gives a really strong like pitch and identity for this game, which is very cool. Okay, so really it seems like there's sort of two phases of play, which are the at least that immediately jump out to me, which are the like prompt and creating your media, and then the sending your media. Um, I'm trying to think what the best way to incentivize really interesting like multimodal messages is through prompts.
Yeah, I mean, we could either do like a very specific, like Richard and Alone, where you draw a card, whether it's a tarot or a playing card, and that, gives you a prompt, or it gives you a prompt that you have to respond to, or it could be a little bit more abstract with just okay, you draw, the five of cups or whatever, and then you go back to your normal tarot rules and see what it says, and that's kind of like how the game shifts and what you need to communicate to the other person.
Sure. Yeah. I think having something that has like a more defined prompt is something that feels pretty necessary for a game like this. Because then and especially if you want the theme to really lean into that sort of like underground resistance idea. Because then you can have like you can even have I mean, you'd have to have a little bit of like the character creation stuff up front of like who are you, how much does the other person know about you, stuff like that. Um and then there's a lot of like for prompts it feels like a lot of that mostly is like a thing. There needs to be like a thing that happens that you need to communicate about. So that sort of feels like what prompts need to be determining. And I guess that isn't necessarily true, but that's kind of where my brain goes, at least, is maybe like an event. Prompts determine an event, or like card draws or tarot draws. And then you're telling the other person about the event or something like that, passing it along the chain of like this network. Seems like it sort of fits into that theming.
So I guess the question so my process is a little bit disjointed and weird, but that's just how my brain works.
Totally.
So I guess my question for you is, first of all, what tool are we going to use? Are we going to use a 52 card or a tarot card, or do we want to table that?
Well, and the not to
Yeah,
overcomplicate, but
please.
the further question is like, do I want cards at all, or is it dice, or is it, or
Yeah.
do you any number of other ways of determining something somewhat randomly. Although I will say the upside of a 52 card or a tarot card is it sort of bounds things pretty nicely, but still has a good number of options. Um,
One option is a 2d10 system where 1d10 represents like the awareness of the authorities, and the other d10 represents one of 10 like potential event categories that could happen.
I love that. I actually love that so much. So a big thing for Vesta Mandate when we were making it, or well,
Okay.
a big thing that Ryan and I talked about early on was the how inspiring Shadow Stress is from Spire, The City Must Fall. And Shadow Stress is basically just how aware are people of you. The authorities or, the other like rival, organizations and stuff like that. I love the idea of this sort of like awareness and events. And if you wanted to get crazy with it, you could even have it be like a 1d10 plus something, and it could be like a d20 table or a 20 point table or whatever. And then as it gets higher, you that could be how you get burned.
Yeah, do tell. I'm
So
open.
basically what just popped into my mind is I love the idea of awareness. So you could have a d10 or a d6 or even probably a d4 table for how aware the events or whatever. But then awareness could be a d10 plus like a stat almost of like I'm trying to think of a good word for it, but like secrecy or like I guess it's the inverse of secrecy, how burned you are. And then you could add that, and then as you play, when you do things that aren't secret enough, your awareness would go up. Your it would like get pushed up the more you play. And so you could have a table where like the early numbers for awareness are all like, oh, they don't know you're there. And then as you play more, it shifts you up further and further until you eventually have to get burned or whatever. I don't know if that's a satisfying or interesting, like, because that kind of drives you towards getting burned potentially. Um,
But
but
also on the flip side, the whole point of movements is at some point when you become so much of the mainstream consciousness, you not only yes, the authorities are more aware of you, but you know who else is aware of you? Every other freaking person, including potential and current allies. And I think that
yeah,
that's where yeah, you more people are at risk, but
yeah, I guess maybe the rather than it just being the higher the awareness is, the more likely you're burned. It's just the higher the awareness, the more risk reward it is. So events are more of like a really high risk, really high reward type stuff. Whereas earlier on, I guess, kind of like what you're saying, there might be some stuff that's really risky, but less of it because you can stay kind of hidden and less kind of picked out. I really like that as a way to do something like that. I have no clue how that stat would increase or anything, but I love that idea.
I think so one thing that I like to do with like some elements is kind of group them. So like, a 1 through 3 on a D10, you increase 1 point, 3 through 6 you increase 2 points. Uh what is it? 7 through 9 you increase 3 points, and then like a 10, oh shit, the cops are on you.
I don't like that my head went here, but it's like the GTA like
The
wanted
5 star.
yeah.
Oh, maybe I shouldn't have stolen that car when a cop's sitting 2 feet from me, but it was a Maserati. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. I do think it's fun that events can increase your like the level of awareness by like a lot if you roll the high ones. Like I think that's kind of interesting. Um there's potentially something really fun where like you start out and you roll like a 10 right away, and all of a sudden your awareness jumps up and suddenly you're doing like way more intense events. And it's fun that all of that sort of journaling related to that is couched within this like engaging with another person who's in the organization. I think that's very fun. What are This is sort of a departure because I think that's enough of like a base for the how we determine prompts that we can kind of come back to it. What are things that you think a character needs in something like this? Is there anything beyond a name?
I think definitely their strengths and weaknesses. As someone who's involved in a mutual aid org, everyone who's involved has strengths and weaknesses. And I know mutual aid is slightly different than resistance. It's more
Yeah,
positive, but like I know I am terrible at IT, but you know who isn't? The person who is not good at doing a lot of boring intake interviews. So,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good one. So it seems to me like those could just be like narrative strengths and weaknesses. Those don't even need to be something that is. And then maybe they give a mechanical, like some sort of vague mechanical adjustment to events or whatever, or you could tie them into the narrative for events or whatever. The IT guy has some technical knowledge to help steal the car for the for event. Okay, I like that a lot, and that creates a character that is almost entirely driven by their strengths and weaknesses as they relate to the things that they're doing, right? Like, which I think is cool.
Do we want people to kind of have their reason why, like,
Ooh, yeah.
included, or because sometimes it's fun to just discover that during gameplay, but
That's an interesting point. I sort of think, especially if the idea is that this is such a radical organization that if they are too well known, they have a risk of being burned. That you almost need to have some reason why you're part of it, and that really helps drive character growth. Like you said, it is really fun to discover that through play. But I think that is something that you almost need to know ahead of time for something like this.
and I guess part of the because I know the mutual aid org I'm a part of, we do a informal, but like we talk through to make sure and ask the person the reasons why they're joining, so we can
Mhm.
weed out bad faith actors. So you would
Totally.
probably want to make sure someone's not a bad faith actor at the start.
Yeah, yeah. This is not a game for like unreliable narrator main characters and stuff or
You,
player characters.
you're not a fan of Battlestar Galactica or the Resistance?
I I I do think that I've grown to love unreliable narrators in my games just generally, and I think this is one of the few games that I've started to make on here where I'm not immediately like throw an unreliable narrator in there. How do you know your partner?
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I almost think so. I think the name of the game is just Blackout or Blacked Out or, but someone that I follow on Blue Sky recently made a Blackout poetry game that is asynchronous, where you like pass Blackout poetry back and forth basically. And the one of the things I remember from skimming through it was that the character creation is done together, like in a Discord call or whatever, and then everything else is asynchronous. And I think that is sort of the same thing we'd have to do here, just so that you can like sit down and talk and be like, okay, this is who I am, this is my motivation, and this is how we know each or how I know you or whatever. Um, and that seems like it would help a lot for building a strong character.
Yep.
In terms of prompts, uh, I think the only other thing we need here is just writing the prompts, which we don't have to do right now. We can just leave that as a void for now.
I mean, is there like a certain goal that we want the organization to have, or a certain like genre of mission statement?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I guess, and that's an interesting question because having a very specific organization that we're aiming for here would help with writing prompts. It'd be a lot harder to write open-ended prompts with a game like this.
It's possible, but
Totally. Yeah, totally. And it's one of those things where a lot of times when I'm making games, my gut is always like, make it more open ended because then people can kind of do what they want with it. But that's always hard. That's always so hard, and a lot of times it makes it less flavorful too. I mean, you mentioned mutual aid. I think those are really good orgs to model. The only caveat that I can think of with that is, uh, I mutual aid doesn't feel like it's risking awareness and being burned and all that. So, I mean, I there's so much like stuff right now in the context of the modern political administration, fascism, ICE, all of that, where like we could build any of that into this contextually,
yeah.
as a sort of like anti-fascist org game. And I think all of those, like you could go a couple different directions, but I think any of those would work. So if there's anything that jumps out to you, I'm open to pretty much all of those.
I guess my question for you is how serious do we want to make it? Because we could make it really silly too if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's tough because there's a part of me that's like, yeah, let's make it maximally serious because it feels like, well, first of all, it feels like now's a good time to be making things that are serious and comment on all of the things that are happening. So there's that side of it. But the flip of that is, from a mechanics and a gameplay perspective, it feels like the multimedia passing things back and forth would lend itself very well to something that has a little bit of a little bit of room for, I don't know if comedy is the right word, but yeah, silliness.
So, side note, there's a game that's based in the Spanish Civil War, and one person who was doing a review was like, "My friends and I just took it and we made it into a modern day anime high school," and it's like, cool. So we can make something really serious and just like people will run with it, and that's
True.
fine.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
And I think there's also room for making something that is serious that has notes of silliness in it, because I think if you make something that is terminally serious front to back, sometimes that can be a bit daunting to engage with, especially in the context of reading headlines every day that are daunting to engage with. So I think sometimes it can be a lot to just go terminally serious.
you know what though? You brought up something that I think might be a really good theme. We are part of an underground news network trying to share real life facts. And people
Ooh.
could take that as serious as they want or as silly as they want. But that is like a very real problem that we are facing now. That like literally anyone can just open up their internet and be like, oh yeah, okay, this is the prompt now.
I really like that because I think prompts are relatively easy to make with that. And you can do everything from, you also have the sort of awareness stuff where you can have, you can go everything from onion to like unraveled and everything in between. And so there's a lot of room in there for people to engage with that. I think that's a good option. And then yeah, awareness is such an interesting like thing there. Now I'm thinking about like the Don Lemon thing that just happened, and that is such a good. I really like that choice. I think that's awesome.
Plus, if people wanted to make like podcasts that would for their communications, they could totally make a short form podcast.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's gonna be like kind of like Void 1680 esque if we wanted to shift and focus it entirely on something like that, like a newscast.
Yeah. But that's entirely up to like people how they want to do it. I think
Yeah, yeah.
didn't Unicorn Riot start as like a mini podcast? Or am I misremembering how Unicorn
I
Riot
have no
is?
clue.
Okay.
You said Unicorn Riot?
Yeah, Unicorn Riot. I only heard about them on Behind the Bastards in 2020, but Apparently,
I
they've been
actually
around for
haven't
a
heard
little
about
while.
these people. I will have to keep that page open. Um, okay, so that kind of gives us a direction to take prompts in if and when and in some of my episodes we've gotten really into things like prompt creation because we've kind of figured out what we want the game to be and we have some time and we're like let's just kind of chill out and kill some prompts while we have some time. Kill some prompts, what does that mean? um Knock out some prompts, that's I guess better. Anyway, um and so I'll leave the space in here and we can come back to it if we have time. But I think let's talk about what sending media looks like, and what are the actual rules for that. And I guess it seems like from what we've talked about, it's less of what are the rules around that and more of like what are the guidelines and ideas.
Yeah, I think that ideally players should be limited to either physical media or ephemera that they can not physical media, I'm sorry, digital media, or like ephemera that will lead someone, or digital media that will lead someone to like ephemera. So you could, you know, have a USB drive and the file contains your whole like article. It could be a file that just contains coordinates to a location.
Oh yeah, interesting. So are you envisioning? So when you say a file that just contains a location, are you thinking that like so if we're playing this game and I have a new news drop that I have to get to you, are you thinking that I would like put my news drop on a USB, leave it somewhere, and then send you a file with a location?
Probably not. We probably want to have like a designated drop off spot. Now,
Yeah.
playing it in real life, you're gonna like probably hand someone a USB drive or whatever, or email each other the files back and forth. But in the game world, I think you are, as a player, going to a physical location that you know you're supposed to pick it up from. You know, like the suitcase handoff almost.
I
And
do
yeah,
I
go
do
ahead.
think there's something fun about doing well, and this maybe this is a variant rule option, but I do think there's something really fun about like picking a drop off spot or something like that, and being like, and maybe it's just as simple as like I'll leave this in your mailbox or something like that. Creating like and obviously that works less well for people who don't live somewhat close to each other, but there's something fun about the idea of like check under your plant out in front of your apartment or whatever. I left the next drop for you or something. Um, and creating like a dialogue around not only the stories that are happening, because you could also have a dialogue with them about that, but also creating a dialogue around like the ways in which you get those and all of that, I think is really fascinating.
So maybe in whatever message you send to the person, you have to indicate where you're gonna drop off your next message when it's your turn again.
Oh, that's really fun. The only thing that I worry about with
Yeah.
that is I imagine for most people it would end up just becoming like here's our drop off point. I almost wonder if during character creation you should pick a set of drop off points and you have to pick between them every time or
So
something like that.
yeah, so then going back to character creation, each player has to select like 5 locations that they would drop off the USB at.
Okay, so I wrote down each player selects 3 to 5 drop off locations. These can be as simple as your partner's mailbox or as complex as you can imagine. Uh, there's something really fun to imagine, like someone being like, "Okay, we both live in Paris. I'm gonna leave it sitting like on the ledge of a bench on the east side of the Eiffel Tower, and, and then you'll go pick it up, and that's like our drop off location number 2 or whatever." Like there's something just very fun about that in my brain, and if no one ever does it, that's fine. Whatever. If 5 people play this and they're always just like, we're playing it with the person in my house, and our drop off locations are the fridge, the mailbox, and that's totally cool. But yeah.
I would like to add one caveat to that rule. The location can be time and date based.
Ooh.
It doesn't have to be, but like, yeah, the leaving the on the a bench on the west side of the Eiffel Tower on a Tuesday at 2 p.m.
That's so fun. I
Like, it
really
doesn't
love
have to
that.
be, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's great. This feels like this could you could reskin this into a very fun spy game.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so truly it is take your prompt for in terms of sending media, it's take your prompt and create some form of multimedia. And so examples we were talking about video, podcast. I guess instead of, it's not really a podcast, it's more of like a audio recording.
Yeah, like audio file, whatever you want to call it.
Um
I mean, it could be a Word doc, photo. I don't know.
trying to think of fun other things.
I mean, it could be a
That
URL.
someone's making whole websites for this. Here, go to this website, and you need this password and this username to to log in and find the information. Uh, so video, audio, a simple game, Word doc, photos, written letters / notes, URL, sketches. I think that covers pretty much the lion's share of stuff I can think of. I'm gonna write here. Consider like the footprint that whatever you make leaves.
I mean, yeah, maybe even just adding a note. What happens if found?
It feels like we could have multiple questions there, and then like, so if your partner can't retrieve the drop, then there's probably like a couple questions for this. What happens if the drop is found by someone else?
Yeah, and also someone else. Is it some rando on the street or is it the authorities?
Yeah.
Percep- Perception isn't the right word, but
No, but it is sort of in that vein, right? Like, um, like my brain keeps going to like public opinion, but like that doesn't really fit. I need like awareness, but about a thing instead of come on, thesaurus. Recognition.
yeah, but
It still feels a little bit off, but
yeah, sensitivity isn't right either.
no.
What about something to do with evasion? Ooh, raise your illusion. Elusion. Or
Isn't it
the
kind of the
elusiveness?
inverse of illusion, though?
Yeah.
What's the inverse?
I'm illusion antonym. What's the antonym of illusion?
I mean, we could just sort of go the Spire direction and call it something that is not specific to the word, but like tack stress on. Um,
Yeah, because it's not distress or adversity.
it's like how much attention,
Yeah,
because it's kind of how much attention you're getting, because it's not even necessarily strictly bad.
Notoriety.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I mean, yeah, I only got my bachelor's in English, and here we
Yeah.
are arguing about that.
Oh. Yeah, that's the perfect word. Raise both. So I was saying raise both your notoriety by 1 to 4, depending on how bad the info is for you. So if someone does the drop and then you can't retrieve it for some reason, and it's like the article that or the information that you were trying to give them about how you had your one of your oh no, what's the word? One of your informants or whatever, and it had like their identity or whatever. That's like pretty rough. Whereas like the inverse of that, if it's just like some stuff that they didn't really want to put online and needed to get it to you, that's like whatever.
Well, also, I think one factor that's a soft factor, it's not, the players would have to kind of discuss it, is how explicit is the media? Like, is it very clear to understand right there, or do you kind of need to, like, understand what the, like, secret message is behind it?
Yeah, yeah. That's also a good question. Okay, so you make your character, you choose your drop-off points, you determine your prompt, and you take your prompt and create some form of multimedia from it. Consider the footprint your media leaves. If your partner can't retrieve the drop, I guess I should say, after consider the footprint, I should probably tell the person what to do with the media. This feels like the thing we're maybe missing here, quote unquote, is what does the partner do with the media? Well, and so I guess maybe this is a thing where I do one and then I pass the media, and then you get that media and do one and then pass the media. So it's like we go back and forth rather than like we both do one.
Yeah.
But it feels like if that's the case, that there should be some sort of like engagement with the media we're given of some kind. That feels like it's the only thing we're really missing in here from a like broader mechanics perspective.
And it's not as simple as someone is a backup and you're just not able to release the media, because you do want to be able to release the message in the media. What about, like, each of you has your own different, like, contacts or ways of how you distribute or disseminate information?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you both, like, one person works in, like, healthcare and another works in the like social services space, and you both are, like, distributing information that's relevant to the other, like, you're sharing information with each other that's relevant to their space.
I even wonder if you could keep it a level more abstracted, because I like that idea, and keep it more just like you both have different contacts within the industries.
Yeah.
So like your prompt might be that one of your contacts blah 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 blah, and maybe even the prompts like direct players to come up with contacts, and you build like a list of contacts and stuff, and you're using those contacts to pass information to the other person who doesn't have that contact but needs it for like a story they're writing or whatever.
Yeah.
And clearly the internet is too unsafe of a place to be sending this kind of information. So you have to drop it off in a USB on the park bench to the west of the Eiffel Tower at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday or whatever it was.
Yeah, and beyond that, like, you want to break that chain of custody of the information, and by having a physical media, you break that right there by taking it offline.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And that almost makes me think this begs for more mechanics. I'm wondering if there should be a little mechanic of like building your contacts or whatever. And that can be mostly freeform narrative stuff, right? Like your contact can just be, but I wonder if all of the prompts should be building information from like maybe both players are building a story the whole game, and the handing off is you knowing roughly what their story is and giving them info that then like drives their story in a direction. So you have like a little journaling game that is actually you like writing a story, like a news story basically,
Yeah.
and you're handing off this information that you're getting from contacts, and the other person might include in their multimedia like, hey, do you have information about X or whatever?
So,
Oh, I just what if the prompts are rolled by the other person?
oh, I like that.
So every oh, my brain is
So you don't know if the data is good or not. You don't know like how
well,
like yeah.
and the flip side of that too is like, and then notoriety could just be a group stat. It doesn't have to be a single like a per person. And I get a thing from you with whatever information I needed, and I then incorporate your info into my story and roll the stuff that I needed, and I along with your info that you gave me, you give me the prompt you rolled for me. So then I do your prompt, and when I pass it back to you, I also give you the prompt that I rolled for you. So then you're never rolling your own prompt. So your prompt is like the other person asking you for the info they need for their story.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
That creates a nice like diegetic thing of like, hey, I need this info from this contact or whatever. Um, Interesting. That was a lot of words and a lot of stuff that isn't in the game already. So let me know if any of that isn't clear.
No,
But
I love that. I think the only thing that I might want to ask is do we want players to just for each gameplay or game, let's say, do we want the players to each just have one story that they're focusing on rather than trying to build the mission for the organization as a whole?
yeah, well, and I guess with the underground news network angle, it could almost be rather than it building the organization as a whole, it could be that you're just functioning as an underground news organization, and your goal is just to get out this big story that's going to like bring down or could potentially help bring down like some element that you're working against.
Yeah.
So and maybe that means that this is more of like an investigative journalism game, about like querying for like your contacts to get in touch with their contacts to get you anonymous sources and stuff, which is kind of fun and cool. I think, I don't know,
Yeah.
gonna get journalists in the comments who are like, that's not how it works.
You're like, quiet nerds.
Yeah.
No, but we appreciate our nerds a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a nerd. I can't judge too much. But yeah, I think that's kind of a fascinating like mechanistic back and forth. So then the start of play really is like, decide the topic of the story you're writing as well, so that you both know like roughly what the other person's writing about. I guess you don't even need to, do you?
I mean, you kind of at least need to have maybe a. It doesn't need to be a hard defined topic, but it could be like, I'm concerned about what the electrical plant is doing. And you may get information as you're building the story. You may get information that changes it from, okay, are they polluting the wastewater to, no, they're using hamsters to generate the city's electricity.
I also love that this kind of becomes a creative writing game in that context as well, because then you'll write part of whatever your like story is, and then your partner will hand you a prompt that's like, and this is what my contact said or whatever, based on the prompt you gave me, and here's another prompt or whatever. And so because of the way that you hand a prompt to them and they just give you information, this is I imagine very true in the life of journalists. You just get information sometimes that's going to be completely incongruous with what you've written already, and then you have to figure out how that all fits together. And I think that's kind of fun.
So if people have those boards with the red string, also post those.
Yeah. Then the only other thing we need to start is just whoever's going first rolls the prompt.
Okay, so just to reiterate what the gameplay round is, or phase, whatever you want to call it. It's I I roll a prompt. I create media for the other person. I send to that person the media and their prompt. Or am I sending them my prompt?
Yeah, I was thinking that you send them the media and their prompt.
Okay.
So and because I'm thinking you'd have the same like prompt lists, right? So you just roll based on your group's notoriety, and that means whenever you roll the prompt or whatever, you can just note what the notoriety gain is, um, and then you just send the media and the prompt alongside it. I mean, you could just, I guess, DM them the prompt. That doesn't have to be within the wacky media. Include the prompt in the game you're making to hide your media or to hide your story. And then they just get the prompt, make their media, and send it back and add to whatever their story is based on what you gave them. So it's like getting new info on whatever you're writing.
So one person's actively responding to a prompt and the other one's writing their story at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Because then it gives you time while the other person's responding to the prompt to like update your story or whatever.
Love that.
So yeah, I guess and that kind of shifts phases to be that like one person is building their media, is building and sending media, and the other person is at the same time like updating their story and like writing. And I guess we almost need a section that talks about.
I think it should be not just writing your story, but interpreting the media and writing your story.
Ooh, yeah.
And writing your story.
I really like interpreting the media as a something that's nice about GameStorm is the fact that like I think in a if I really like sat down with it, I might like cut back a little bit and like rework some things to make this a little bit cleaner, but it's nice to just sit down and be able to like wallow in the fact that the game might be a little bit unrealistic to play, but you can just kind of enjoy, you can be a little bit indulgent with the mechanics that you're building because you can enjoy the fact that you're like, in theory, I think this would be fun. And you don't have to worry nearly as much because we're building like the ash can or whatever. And we can try it out and be like, this is non-functional, and then come back to it and fix it later if it truly is non-functional. It's very nice to just let my brain have sort of like creative freedom and not feel like trapped in this idea of like the thing has to work 100% totally. And it's kind of a tangent, but it's just popped into my head while we were writing this because I was like, I think there are some elements of this where I'm being indulgent with the ways that I'm like adding things or whatever, and I kind of like that because it's nice to just let your brain go.
I mean, I will be honest with you. If a game like this came out while I was in college, I would eat that shit up.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Like I went to a commuter school, but like we all were on the same campus. So yeah, hide stuff for the nerds, like at like one of the Desi holiday party events, or yeah,
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
student union and look under the quickly before the cleaning people come.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's exactly it, and it almost might be perfect for college students because you're in a space where you have so many different like weird wacky places where you can like hide stuff,
Hmm.
and you're all somewhat close to each other, right? Like even if you're commuting or whatever, you still have access to all of those spaces. So that is kind of an ideal scenario, to be honest. Okay, so write your story based on your starting ideas, and then as you receive media from your partner and their contacts, update your story based on the interpretation of the media you receive. The only other thing that pops into my head immediately is a little thing for contacts that basically just says, I think it's really funny because this doesn't make any sense at all, but I think it's really funny the idea that like I have a bunch of contacts that you need for your article, and instead of putting you in touch with them, I'm like, send me a request and I'll get you that information in a USB stick that I've placed in a very strange area for you to pick up. Because I imagine in the real world I would just be like, yeah, I'll give you their phone number. It's just very funny. Um, I think this is pretty much the game. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need here. We could definitely write some prompts if you want to. Like, I'm happy to take some time and do that, but we also don't need to. Um,
I mean, I'm fine either way. My dog's asleep, so I have whenever.
that's your only obligation.
And he will bully me to bed if he's awake.
Sure, yeah. There we go. Why don't we get like a table of 10, and then that at least frames like the ideas in our brain. So this will be our, or we could even just do a couple on a couple of different tables. My thought process is basically, and I guess maybe instead of what I'm doing, because what I'm doing in this doc is silly, maybe instead I'll just make a,
Maybe we just want to have 10 generic prompts and then up to 10 things that impact the prompts based on notoriety, or 20 things.
that would make our prompt creation simpler. I think that's a good idea.
I mean, if you want to write 100 prompts, more, I don't even think that like the thick, like, for the queen has that many prompts in it.
Hey, I love writing prompts.
Yes,
but you're right. I'm my my brain is not thinking about. I was like, it'd be cool if we did just as many as possible. But yeah, that gets out of hand real quick.
Cool. Yes.
Let's just come up with 10 general prompts, and then we can kind of go from there. So I'll put in my numbers here, and then we can. If you have any thoughts, let me know. Something that comes to mind here is if I don't have access to where your article is right now, I don't know if that's less or more interesting actually. It's maybe more interesting if I don't know like what your article reads right now, because then I just know what the topic is and what the prompt is. And that makes it way more likely that I'm going to send you some shit that like totally fucks it. Which I guess is maybe more interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, how else are you gonna tie in Lex Luthor's plot and cheeseburgers? Like, yeah, if I send you something about cheeseburgers, like you said earlier, is this actually literal cheeseburgers or is this a metaphor for something? I don't know. So
Yeah.
now I need to write to figure out how this is gonna incorporate it.
Totally. I actually, based off of that, I like the idea of trying to think of how to word this, but something along the lines of like something seemingly unrelated has like a very important meaning.
Something seemingly unrelated has ties to an influential figure in your story.
I want people to be like making home movies of like a scene that they caught on camera that is like shows something related to this that then the person has to interpret. That'd be very cool. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yes, that came to my brain because of your hamburger comment, so I just would like to praise the hamburger comment. I think that was good.
Ooh, that's a good one.
An influential main character is less involved than you think.
A public event occurred that causes a new revelation in the story.
Someone got a recording device into a private room.
Do you want to just do like new allegations?
Do you want to specify anything with that, or do you just want to leave it as just new allegations have arisen?
I feel like if we specify like that's tied to a certain person or an event or an organization, that might limit the players a little bit.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just leave it as that then, because I think that leaves there's a lot of room for you to be like, oh, new allegations have come out. This is what it is, and the other person to be like, what? That has nothing to do with anything. Someone who is believed innocent is lying. I like leaving it open ended, not saying that they're not innocent, but just saying that they're lying about something, because that's a lot juicier, I think.
Ooh, what about an incriminating file was found?
I like that. That with some of these, I'm like, I hope people are like make the file and stuff like that and send it over, because that'd be so cool. Like someone's just like in their text editor, just like making a little incriminating file and sending it over.
Not to bring up a grad school trauma, but if someone made a Microsoft Access file with 50,000 data points, friends,
Hey,
please don't do that.
hey, it'd be super easy to generate a bunch of data in a random thing with just a very simple script. You don't need to know that much programming to do it.
You're not wrong. I hated that class, and let's never do
I
that
can only
again.
imagine. Trying to think of other good.
What about proposed legislation may change the story?
I was also thinking like a fight breaks out
Yes.
between I'm trying to think of the word like the involved parties, and that's kind of open ended, so that can be, you know, they're brawling in the courthouse, or that can be, you know, they're having a legal battle now or whatever.
Someone writes a diss track, who cares? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dude, someone's writing a story about Kendrick Lamar and
Yes.
Drake.
And
Their back and forth is just sending recordings of the songs.
okay, but honestly, like with all the musical RPGs that have come out recently, that would be
Yeah,
like so in line with that.
it would be very funny. Uh,
Ooh, what about uh what about something about, and I think this one I'm not phrasing it well, but what about like a a false news story comes out? I don't know. I know that's not good phrasing, but I'm trying to think.
your
Yeah.
contact gives you fake news.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of fake, we could say misleading.
Yes. Even better.
We found the unreliable narrator.
Good job. It's the Where's
Right?
Waldo of Game Store.
Yeah. The Where's Waldo of GameStorm. I love that. Okay, that's 10 strong prompts, I think. You were talking about 10 that are like about the notoriety, basically. Do you have any thoughts about what that would look like, really?
So I think that 10 was definitely your cause reaches public awareness, and and I don't want to say a household name, but like maybe your cause reaches the mainstream consciousness.
Which is the zeitgeist.
Yes, thank you. That's the word. Don't ask me to spell it.
I'm not sure if I nailed it. Oh, I got it. I was just get made fun of at work for knowing the word zeitgeist, and I was always like, I'm sorry that I read. I don't know what to tell you.
Whereas me, I'm over here a polyamorous person who cannot spell hierarchy to save my life.
That's very funny.
Thank you, Google and autocorrect.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so your cause/story reaches the zeitgeist. Um, for one, I wrote you're unknown and unbothered.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say I think 5 should maybe be something that splits the difference, but leans like maybe not leans negative, but is like you're well known enough to be disliked or something like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I think usually that comes before people love you.
Yeah,
Maybe that's cynical.
no, because maybe 6 is You gain new members to the cause.
I'm trying to think of a. You gain new members that believe your story
Yeah.
or believe.
In your cause?
The only reason I'm thinking about story rather than cause is just because of the context of writing like a news story, basically. But I guess that's sort of the difference between, is the notoriety about your organization or is the notoriety about the story you're writing? And I guess if it's both of you, it's more about the organization. So it is really more about the cause. Um, so I guess it is more cause. I'm just that was kind of a balancing thing in my brain.
So for two, I feel like you get the occasional suspicious figure.
What do you mean by that?
Like you're not sure if the authorities, like if there's an authority, like the whole, not gang stalking, but like,
Sure.
ooh, wait,
So
are the authorities waiting around the corner? Question mark.
you occasionally feel you're being watched.
Yes.
For like somewhere in the 7 to 9 range, maybe like 8. I was thinking like the online hate reaches a fever pitch.
Can we make 9? You have to, or you have to spend a significant amount of time sorting through the noise.
Oh, yeah, what's a good way to word that? That's a tough one. You have to spend the noise.
Delays your story.
Ooh, yeah. So I was actually just thinking about this as we're writing this. Is I kind of like the idea of the game having you publish and shift through stories, because then it gets the idea of you being a news network more. I wonder what, I don't have any answers for this off the top of my head, but I wonder what the finished point should be for a story. And maybe that's just something where we say whenever you feel a story is finished, publish it and start a new topic.
Yeah, but you could also be like trickling out information or trickling out little stories before the big story breaks.
Yeah, and like especially in some indie news stuff, I see stuff like that more often, of being like, "Oh, we're working on a big story that has to do with this sort of thing or whatever." But I wonder if it's one of those things where like maybe we even say like, when you feel like your story is finished, publish it and move on to the next. Tell your partner your new topic, and begin the cycle again. Um, and then we could say like most stories will take like 4 to 6 prompts or something like that.
Can I make one addition to that when you're done?
Go for it. Yeah.
Raise the notoriety by 1 when you publish a story.
Yeah. So this brings me to an interesting question. Uh, should there be ways for your notoriety to go down? Because currently we don't have any, but I'm just thinking about like someone releases a bad article and suddenly everyone's like, they're kind of a shitty news network. Don't pay attention to them.
So like you want to include like a disinformation mechanic?
Yeah, and I'm almost wondering like, I almost wonder if when you release your article, it should be like a roll a d6 1 through 3, and your notoriety goes up to 3 or down by up to 3 or something like that. I don't know. Something like that.
Or just like I do like that. We could do it like a 1 reduces it by 2, a 2 reduces it by 1, a 3 or a 4, nothing happens because you have some bad information in there, but it's not like fully accurate.
Sure.
And then
yeah.
to your point, 5 increases it by 1, 6 increases it by 2.
That also kind of makes me want to change the 1d10 roll to only increase notoriety by a relatively small amount.
Yeah.
So that your notoriety is going up pretty slowly, and maybe that means that notoriety only increases, or maybe it doesn't even increase from events. Maybe it only increases from I don't know. Maybe there's a chance on events. I'm not 100% sure, but I really like this idea of like you release your story and then you see how your notoriety changes. I think that's really fun.
Yeah. My only question, I guess, is how long do we want people to play this game?
Yeah, that's a big, totally, totally.
Because I could play this for like months if allowed.
Well, and I'm sort of thinking with how it's structured, this game would have a lot of downtime, basically. So the amount of time you might play it for months, but the amount of time you'd actually play would be relatively little. Like maybe you'd play an hour here, an hour there, or whatever, of building your prompt and doing the passing along and stuff like that. So what are we feeling for our 1d10 for events? Do we think that should just be like, or maybe you just roll, maybe we do keep the awareness roll, and the awareness is what determines if your notoriety goes up.
Yeah.
Because awareness plus, that can be a really simple table too. That can just be like a 2d10. Well, I guess it'd be a little bigger than 2d10, but it can be 1d10 plus notoriety. And then your notoriety can get bigger or better the more notorious you are, because that's pretty much how it works on the internet. And the table is just, oh, and this table could have decreases as well. So then you could have like changes that aren't just going up. And then I'm sort of just thinking it might be like a very simple, straightforward sort of, I don't know, something like that, where we have like you roll a 1d10 plus notoriety, and on the bottom portion you get some negatives, in the middle area you get zeros, and then as you get higher up you start to get plus ones, plus twos. Does that make sense?
And I like it does, and I like the fact that it could be, 4, because if each story takes 3 to 5 back and forths, and you're only changing that by up to 2, I think that this helps like kind of keep the game at a good
Yeah,
pace.
totally. And this means that like, one of you bungles a social media post, and now the people are like, oh, we hate those guys, they suck. Which that's kind of being notorious, I guess, but cool. Okay, that kind of fixed something that was
Quick
in my brain. So
quick question though. Do we want to maybe make the negatives a little bit higher? Like as in like -2 is 1 and 2, because if you like have any notoriety, you can't subtract it by 2.
sure, yeah. So thinking like 1 and 2, -2, and maybe that means we even go like -3 up here, or -1 up here, and then 0 0. Because then once you get your first couple of plus ones and your first story comes out, you're probably going to get past that area where you're going to be like losing notoriety a bunch, and then you might start to like do your snowball or whatever. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And this is something that we'd have to like do some dice math on to really know for sure how it feels, and then decide exactly how long we want the game to be. And I guess already this game is kind of just play until you're sick of it. So, which,
I mean, that's how most asynchronous games work.
yeah, totally. Okay, do we want to think about these last 3 prompts and then we can call it there? That seems like it's pretty much the game. So,
Do you want like 3 or 4 to be like you receive a call from the authorities?
I really like that.
I'm not sure where this should go in 7 or 3. There's an imposter.
I like that in 7.
Okay.
Someone joins your org with ill intent.
Love that.
And then 3 feels like it should be something that's like people start to notice you without just being hateful.
Yeah.
That feels like a good little narrative list of the effects there. This is a fun, wacky little game. So I have what to me is often the hardest question of this whole thing,
Yeah.
which is, any name ideas?
So my fun little like Easter egg. All of my games have 3-word titles and are all and I'll try to have alliteration in them.
Well, so I was thinking Unknown News Network.
Yeah. Ooh, yes, love that. Done.
I'm
Done. You don't have to sell me
I'm glad
twice.
we hit that so quickly. I like that. That's awesome. Cool. Unknown News Network, and I guess the hope is you won't be unknown by the end of it. So that's UNN. Cool. I think that's pretty much it. Is there anything else you feel this game is missing that you would want to have added into it before we write it up into an ash can or whatever?
I mean, the only thing is the standard, reference of safety tools.
Yes,
Like,
totally.
yeah. Like, please go over the safety tools. Especially in something like this where you could deal with really upsetting heavy topics.
Do you have a specific? So my gut reaction here is that this game is big and long enough that I would probably look to the palette grid for this, because it is a little deeper than like Lines and Veils in terms of like you can talk more about like what things you want to dig into and what things you want to avoid.
There's a safety tool. It's like the replay or the VCR safety tool kit. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, because I shared it. There was in my queer Discord. There was a whole like conversation around what unconventional safety tools people used. So let me try to find that one. Script change.
Script change.
Yeah, I can put the link to it in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great. Interesting.
So like you can choose an MPAA rating.
Yeah.
You can choose Pix, Squix, and Ix. Pause, fast forward. So I don't want to like actually talk about this in detail. Rewind.
Yeah.
I mean, instant replays and frame by frame. So like you're like, I want to go into this a bit more. You could be like, hey, you sent me something about cheeseburgers. Can we go frame by frame? And like next time you send me more info about that.
Interesting. Okay, well, I think this is such a good deep dive too on this like one page. I feel like that's one of my biggest issues with safety tool stuff is a lot of times you have to like go to 5 different pages to find. This feels like it takes a lot of like Lines and Veils ideas, X card ideas, all sorts of other stuff, and puts it all into one place, which is very cool. I will throw this into our doc as a reference that I can add it into the final.
Another reason why I like this toolkit is it kind of fits with the multimedia theme.
It does, yes, 100%. Cool. Well, I think that puts us in a place where we have a game. I think that's pretty cool.
So I have one question for you.
Yes.
When are you releasing GameStorm branded USB drives?
So that you can play this with your GameStorm USB?
You gotta keep the marketing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll have to get on it. This episode is due to come out. I think I have the doc open somewhere. Yeah, it's here. This episode is due to come out mid-March, so I have about a month and a half to get that out. We'll see if I can do it.
Worst case, you buy a bunch of USB drives on like AliExpress, and you like yeah, exactly. Whatever.
Guys, I'm shipping you USBs out of my basement. Please, it's totally legit. I swear.
No kill switches involved. I promise. That's the GameStorm guarantee.
I would never do anything untoward with these USBs before sending them on. That's so funny. Mugs? No. T-shirts? Fuck that. USB sticks? Gotta be able to play our weird game with them. That's awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of GameStorm as we make Unknown News Network. Sorry, I wrote Underground News Network was elsewhere in the notes. My bad. Unknown News Network. It's been a blast having you on, Courtney. Where can everyone find you?
Thanks so much for asking. So people can find me both on Blue Sky and on Itch under the name Courtana. COURTA. N as in Nancy, A. And yeah, you just search that, you'll find it. I've only released a few games, but I'm working on a few ones, and I skeet about weird stuff, not just games.
I've played a couple of your games at Playtest Chicago, and they've all been great, so go check them out. And again, thank you for being here. It was a blast. I can't wait to get this out. And for all of you at home, thank you for listening again. I appreciate you joining us in our second season. This episode, as always, will release alongside the Ash Can of the Game on the Story Game Chicago itch page. You can also find it on our Patreon. You should go jump on over there, and you can support us. And you can support this podcast so that we can keep making this, and you'll get all the games. Jump on over there, check all that out. You can find me, as always, at CH Kirk on Blue Sky and most of the platforms. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.